Hello there, I didn't see you. I was just playing on my desk. I'm sure I'll just add the sound in post. Anyways, so I've noticed with this channel we've been talking about the modern era of horror. You know, we've been talking about the slasher movies, and while I have a lot of affection for those movies, as I've stated time and time again, they're not what got me into the genre. Now, what got me into these films were the old school classics. The monster movies, the mad scientist movies, the evil genius movies. The black and white chillers that still leave an indelible legacy on the genre. I mean, hell, that's why I'm sitting in front of the camera rambling to you right now, is because of those movies. So I thought that we need to carve out some real space on this channel to show some love for those movies. And instead of starting out with an obvious one, like Frankenstein or The Wolfman, I thought we would start with the underrated Abominable Dr. Phibes. Man, I mean, that's what you call like a fucking title, none of that Halloween 2018 bullshit. So the Abominable Dr. Phibes is, it's hard to describe. It came out in 1971, and the plot is, it would just be better if I read it to you here. Vincent Price plays a diabolical doc seeking the ultimate in revenge with precision, creepiness, and surgical wit. After a team of surgeons botches his beloved wife's operation, the distraught Dr. Phibes unleashes a score of Old Testament atrocities, from a plague of locusts to an attack of rats. So if that little synopsis didn't let you know, this is an odd movie. It marches to the beat of its own drum, and a weird frickin' drum that is. I mean, in the first 8 minutes alone, you have like Phibes playing on his organ, which is rising from the ground. It's like on an elevator or something. Before this band of robotic mannequins start playing along. That's the opening of this movie, and it lets you know we're in for a heck of a ride with the Abominable Dr. Phibes. Now, if that seems off-putting to you, if you think that's pretty out there, then I don't know what to tell you, because I can't remember the last time I had so much fun with a film than the Abominable Dr. Phibes. One of the key reasons being none other than the legendary, the immortal Vincent Price. Okay, this dude is a god in the genre, and this movie is a perfect example why. Now, Phibes is a mute character technically. He was in a car accident that damaged his vocal cords, so Price isn't able to show off his iconic voice as much, but he showed that he didn't need that voice. All he needs is the weird, entrancing expression on his face and the manic look in his eyes to convey what a badass he was on screen. Aiding Vincent Price and elevating the whole movie is this constant sense of black humor. And I mean dark humor, okay? Like, there are some grotesque sequences in this film considering the time it was released. But the on-screen gore and the weirdness of the kills does not take away from the delightfully bizarre sense of humor that is running throughout the entirety of this flick. Delightfully bizarre is the best way to describe this movie in every aspect. You have a delightfully bizarre Vincent Price playing one of his strangest roles, and if you ask me, the stranger the Vincent Price, the better. A delightfully bizarre set of murder sequences, some of which are the most creative I've ever seen put to film, and a delightfully bizarre art direction and set design. Man, these sets in this movie have such character to them. They lend so much weight and so much dimension to the tone of this film, to the ambiance. Dr. Phibes has a lair that just puts anybody else's lair to shame. Okay, it would make the Phantom of the Opera blush. Alright, he is decked out in there. And this movie makes me realize what a dying art that set design has become. If this were made today, you would just stick the actors in a green room and figure it all out in post, okay? That would take away from the magic of Dr. Phibes. That would take away from the charm, the authenticity. There's so many ways that this movie represents a bygone era that I desperately wish we could get back to, but we at least have the Abominable Dr. Phibes as a time capsule of an era of filmmaking that really puts so much thought and creativity to these things. I mean, you have a weird out there concept already, but when the filmmakers go for it with the enthusiasm that they do and the craftsmanship that they do, then you don't have a weird little movie. You have one of the most entertaining films of its kind. And this whole movie is really grounded by the screenwriting. This movie was produced in England, and that dry English wit permeates the entirety of the screenplay.
Here, how are we gonna get him off this? You take his head, and I'll take his feet. Let's unscrew him.
And that screenwriting, that banter, is perfected by the cast that they've assembled. I've already talked about Vincent Price and how he brings the role of Anton Phibes to life, but Vincent Price isn't the only key player here. First, there's Detective Trout. He's the one who figures out what's going on with these murders. He figures out the pattern between them. So with all that he solves and all that he figures out, you think the movie would treat him respectably and that he would be like this super genius detective, but he's a goof and a buffoon. Everybody treats him like one, including the movie itself. But the most important casting for me here was Joseph Cotten in the role of Dr. Facerius. Now, Joseph Cotten is one of the most criminally underrated actors of his generation. I mean, the dude was acting in Hitchcock films and Citizen fucking Kane. And to see an actor of his stature playing aside from Vincent Price, especially in that weird role, that's just like a dream come true, okay? The Abominable Dr. Phibes is the gift that keeps on giving.
Remaining minutes are all you have, because when the acid reaches him, he will have a face like mine.
And while I've talked about how essential the humor is in making Dr. Phibes a success, that's not to say that this movie is entirely like a spoof or a parody. No, horror hounds will find real satisfaction out of the ingenuity behind these murder sequences. So this movie strikes a perfect balance, and it's that balance that has become the legacy of this film. I think you can trace Sam Raimi's Evil Dead trilogy all the way back to The Abominable Dr. Phibes. That being said, it's not a perfect movie. The big problem for me is that Phibes' motivations is kind of on the flimsy side. He equates these doctors to murderers simply because they couldn't save his wife in surgery. But we don't have enough details as the audience to know how justified that rage is. I mean, I know I'm dissecting and scrutinizing the logic of a man who has to speak through a monograph, but I think for the tone that this movie's going for and just how elaborate the death scenes are, I think it would make it even more entertaining if there was a level of vindication to Phibes' murders. I mean, the movie's asking you to go along with his murders to an extent. I mean, they're the centerpiece to the movie, and Vincent Price is just so hard to root against. Now, maybe that's just me, but I kind of wish he had a stronger motivation. And the only other real thing is that there's a mute assistant that he has. I can't remember her name. It's like Volvania or something weird like that. She's kind of a useless character. I know that Phibes should probably have an assistant because, I mean, he has to have somebody helping him do all this stuff. But to make her a mute, and for him to also be a mute, you had an opportunity there to give Phibes a relationship that would, you know, color his psychology and his character even more. But as a character, she's really useless on any kind of dramatic level, and I don't know, it was just kind of a missed opportunity. But aside from those two things, do I have any problems? No, not at all. This is kind of a perfect movie. Now, before I recommend it, obviously you're going to have to know your taste. If you're not interested in these kind of weird, random, just bizarre death scenes, like if you don't like it conceptually, there's no way you're gonna like Dr. Phibes. But if you like Vincent Price, if you like that era of horror filmmaking, you know, with the mad geniuses and all that, and if you have a good dark sense of humor, then it doesn't come highly recommended enough. I had a surprisingly great time watching this movie. You think it's gonna be dated and cheesy, but in its own way it is timeless. Not sure if I can call it a major classic on the level of Jaws or The Exorcist, but it has its place in cinematic history, and if you're a horror hound at all, I suggest you go watch it.